Good evening. Our group like to present research project of the title Hatafu Beach Profile Response to Coastal Conditions. The group names Vikataufa, myself, Sasvi, Tonga. This is the map of Hatafu locations, which located at the western side of Tongatapu Island. The objective of this research project are to observe the sediment producer and analyze the sediment composition, size, and abundance at Hatafu Beach. Grain size analysis therefore provide important clues for sediment provenance, transport, history, and depositions conditions. These are the material: tape measure, plastic bag and label, camera, sediment sample, sieve shaker and sieve set, measure scale, sediment sample range from 0 meter, 4, 8, 12 and 20 meter. Microscope, plastic bag and label, sieve, brushes, camera, paper and pen. There are 5 samples collected from the site. The sampling was completed using the method of line intercept transect technique. Sample collections start from the berm or 0 meter at the vegetation zone. Range 4 meter, 8 meter, 12 meter, and the 20 meter is the swash zone. The sample were carefully collected separately from each point and was put in label plastic bag. This sample taken to the lab and used different sieve size to analyze the particle size and identify as coral sands or sand shell. This data will be used as a dynamic information of a beach profile, and most important result is to provide information and practical use in coastal management.
To continue our presentation, when we took a sample from the profile of Hatafu, we tried to collect some data to identify the sediment on the profile. So we used a graph to identify how the sediment are deposited on the profile. This graph can tell us the difference of the sediment they deposit on the profile. When we analyze the data, we got morass, foram, and coral, and rock fragment. They are deposited on the Hatafu profile, and the graph can tell us the difference of how different of the sediment are deposited on different meters of the profile in Hatafu. The next we collect the data of grain size fragment, and we put on the table, and then we use the graph to identify how the difference of the sediment, and this graph can tell us the weight of the sediment that we use to analyze the data on the profile of on Hatafu. And then we continue on cumulative weight in percentage. We do the same thing. We collect the data and then we put on the table, weight it, and then we try to analyze it on the graph, and then we use the graph to tell us the difference of sediment and the percentage how sediment are deposited on the profile in Hatafu.
Thank you, Vika and Xiaoxi. I will continue on the important part is our discussion. In our discussion, this is what we are discussing, the result from our experience. In our discussion that we showed that coral are the most dominant one in our beach profile, or the distribution of the sediment in the beach. The second one is the grain size. We found out that the very fine grain size that abundance in the 0 meter to 20 meter is 0.5 millimeter. That's the size of the sediment or the sand. And one of the things that we found out that it is very complicated to determine the particles in start from 0 meter, come to 12 meter. But when we come to 20 meter, we found out that we will manage to identify which belonging to coral fragment, to shell fragment like mollusks and forum such things. The third one that the rest of the sample from 8 meter to 20 meter, there was no excess of the fine sand due to the 8 meter is where the peak of the high tide. And 4 millimeter grain size only increase and appear more near the source and the sea because it's heavy. It's a heavy weight and difficult to the wave to take them. We continue and we come there. We found out that we have some error that can affect the result of our analysis when we come to the lab. One of the error that we found when we come to weighting our sediment, the first we need to wait before sieving each sample. This is one of the error that we found out when we come to the lab. The second one that the error that we found that the grain size when we sieving, where some of the sediment or the sample are still wet or stick, and we can handle to use properly to sieve it to try to get the right size. And we need to use a laser granulometry to well identify. Because when we come to identify it in 0 meter, we can't tell which one is a coral fragment and which one is a mollusk. It is very difficult for us to identify. As I said, when we come to the 20 meter, the particle or the sediment in 20 meter are well identified. As we know, this is belong to coral, this is belong to mollusk, and this is one of the errors that we come out when we do our lab analysis. In this picture, we see that in the high tide that we try to locate where the seaweed, where the mark of the high tide, and continue on to the bottom that we see there's some of the big particle. This is that we say that we managed to identify well. We come up to our last conclusion, and then we're summing up all of our results. In our conclusion, we need to say again that the grain size that are most abundant in Ha'atafu beach profile is 0.5 millimeter, which that is the coarse sand. It is all indicated how the sediment composition with the outlier are extreme, with the less that 0.5 millimeter are only found at the sample from 0 meter up to 4 meter, and the 4 millimeter grain size are most abundant at the swash zone. This is the major effect of how the equilibrium of Ha'atafu beach profile was formed. It also included the onshore wind direction and active wave energy of how it shaped the beach profile. Therefore, the abundance of the sediment illustrates the environment of the beach and its equilibrium. That is, the beach is surrounded by coral reef. As we said, that most of the Tongatapu are surrounded with coral reef, and that's why the dominant particle or the sediment that we found is the coral sediment. We come to the question, and then I'll thank you for attention to our presentation, and this is we come into our question time. So if any question, this is time for asking any question.
Thank you. From your presentation, I'd like to ask you whether there is any impact of climate change that can change the profile of a beach, please.
Thank you. This is a very good question. As we all know and aware that climate change that affect of most of the Pacific Island, and Tonga is one of the low-lying area. The impact such as sea level rise, strong cyclone, big wave, and strong wind, they can change the distribution in the beach profile pattern. And some wind can be erode the sediment into other area, or they can be take it back to the deep area. As we all aware that the Hatafu beach is surrounded this very deep area. Any question?
Yes, I have one question. My question is, what are the importance of your data and your result in terms of coastal management?
Thank you. That's another good question. The first important is to us, all of us, class or student, that we need to have some experience on kind of work, observation experience like this. We need to have some experience in time when we come to work. It's very supportive to us to have kind of experience to observation and analysis of sediment in the beach profile. Not only that, but the data and the result that we get in doing our presentation is help to our line ministry in terms of coastal management. As we all know that the development of infrastructure, the sand is one of the raw materials that used for building of the infrastructure, and we need this data and result to control the problem, to control the sand mining and something like that lead to erosion of our coastal area. Thank you. Any question? Malo.